Welcome to the Wellness Creator Podcast. In today's episode, we are discussing some interesting news and trends related to wellness businesses, including two news stories in the US legal industry that might be affecting online advertising that you should be aware of, and also some really interesting trends around the economy and spending on wellness, and some good news in there for those of us in the wellness industry.
Really good news. Really
Yeah.
shocking, amazing good news. So that's going to be a good story. Okay, so first up, we're going to talk about Zuckerberg.
Yeah, like why not continue the thread? I feel like we're always kind of talking about this guy, but he's a pretty powerful figure in in our lives, especially
Yeah.
for those of us that run businesses on the internet. And Sandy, do you want to just kind of give us a rundown of like what is happening with Mark Zuckerberg and US District Court?
Yes, I love it. Yeah. So here's what's happening. He is in court. The Federal Trade Commission of the US took Meta to court saying, hey, you've built an illegal monopoly and you're not playing fair. And so they're claiming that when Meta bought, or Facebook at the time bought Instagram and WhatsApp, that is a monopoly and it is an unfair advantage. And he's basically bought those two apps to eliminate the competition.
Yeah.
And so what I think is so interesting here is the FTC has to define the market, right? So, you're dominating the market. What is the market? And they're defining the market as Meta's companies, so Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And then the only other ones in the market are Snapchat and MeWe, which I don't know anything about that, but that's the market. They have not talked about TikTok, YouTube, or X, right? So they're defining the market as you're dominating this market where people share content to friends and family. And then the other ones, X, YouTube, and TikTok, they're defining that as apps that share to strangers. And so Facebook is like making an argument like, oh no, hold on here. Like there's lots of competition if you include TikTok. And they're making an argument that when TikTok closed in the US for whatever that weekend,
2
3 days or
hours.
something, for hours, that they saw an increase, an uptake, when they closed down. So clearly there is there is competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of a silly delineation that
Yeah.
the judge has made, because obviously those of us in the business world know that many people use Meta's tools to reach an audience wider than friends and family. In fact, like many of us have used this as the major tool historically to grow our business, whether it was Facebook ads or Instagram like posts or whatever. And so, I mean, it's kind of not it's not a super strong argument, I think, logically, but I don't know. You can make a legal case for just about anything. And so what I think is so interesting is that you pointed out, Sandy, is that Zuckerberg was like, there were communications back as far as 2018 that there was concern inside the company that this was likely to happen, that this antitrust issue was going to become a real thorn in their side, but that there was just so much pressure on the company to grow, really. And I just want to pause here for a second and say, like, this is the fundamental problem with kind of growth-driven modern capitalism, is that there is this grow at all costs, not just like a priority, but a mandate, at least in the United States. Like there is a mandate. You have a fiduciary responsibility to be kind of constantly showing growth to your shareholders. And so you look at a company like Meta that has largely grown by acquiring other businesses. And it's the same thing for Amazon or like really any big company, because you max out on what you can do with your existing goods and services, right? Like you have to grow by acquiring your competitors, really.
Or new markets.
Or new markets. Yeah.
Which, just sidebar, total tangent here, is I just finished the book called Careless People, which is a whistleblower from inside Facebook who worked with Mark. I forget her last name. Her name is Sarah. I forget her last name, but talking about like growth and growth at all costs, don't care what wars break out, don't care who dies, don't care,
Yeah.
our employees can go to jail, don't care as long as we
Yeah.
get to growth. It is terrifying what he has done. And specifically around China and some of the, like, I am not too worried about TikTok. Like, China information from Facebook is also a huge concern. So if
Mhm.
that interests you at all, I would totally recommend it. I know, Jenny, you don't want to read it, but
No.
it
Will
is
trigger me.
yeah, I mean, it's like a little, the author worked beside Mark for years trying to get him to really do good things and truly connect people, which was the mission of Facebook in the early days. And he just, like, growth, 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 and he wanted in China more than anything because that's really the only place he could grow. So anyway, sidebar. That is I literally just finished that, and then this is happening, and I know from that book, if what she's saying is true, is like that's all he's thinking about here.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And like, and again, like, not to forgive that way of thinking, but it is like, that is the common,
mhm,
dominant, and kind of forced way of thinking if you're running a publicly traded company in the United States, at least. And I would say, like, globally, because of we have a global economy. Like, this is what the job is. And if you don't think growth at all costs, you will be replaced by your board.
true.
And like, that is what we have in the 21st century. I mean, we really conceived of this in the 20th century, but this is what modern kind of industrial and post-industrial
Hmm.
capitalism creates.
Hmm.
Like, this is
Yep.
what it is. So
Yeah.
it's not like I, I have I made a habit over many years of like critiquing this idea of like, like social purpose businesses or like green businesses, because to me, that's all like window dressing on this fundamental principle of growth at all costs, because that's
True.
literally what the job is.
True.
Take
Yep.
it,
Yep.
don't like it, but like, that's just the truth. And if you want to change that, you have to change the underlying system.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to go back to what the two sides that this can fall onto. So if the judge agrees with Meta that there is a market that is bigger and competitive, then nothing will probably happen. But if the judge sides with the FTC, Meta could be forced to break up the company and break off Instagram and
Mhm.
WhatsApp.
Mhm.
And so I found some stats that Instagram is half of Meta's revenue right now. So this would be a huge blow to Meta, the company. It is something in the neighborhood of $32 billion, the ad revenue from Instagram. So, of course,
Yeah.
Mark is doing everything he can to keep this conglomerate together. And he's been to Trump to try and, like, cut a deal. Or you read about that part. What was he doing
Yeah,
with
I mean,
Trump?
he just was in the White House earlier this month. I read, and the rumors are that he was trying to cut a deal, and that's like a big part of why people think he's been cozying up to Trump since
Yeah.
the
Oh,
election,
sure.
is
Yeah.
because he has so much to lose, and it's I mean, it's kind of disgusting to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's also like potential major fines involved, and so he went asking Trump actually to like to for basically like a bargain, to like for a settlement that would be more in favor of more in Meta's favor. I mean, that's the rumor. Again, who
Yeah.
knows what he actually
Yeah.
talked about in there. But I think that that's like, this is just showing how kind of politics is tied in with business, is tied in with social media, and the world, the modern world that we live in and occupy and run our businesses in. It's connected to all of these other things going on. And I think it's important as business owners, especially those of us who are heavily using these platforms to run our business. And I don't know that many people who are not using these in some way,
Yeah. Whether it's paid or not. Yeah.
paid or not. Like,
Hmm.
it's important to understand how these things might be changing moving forward. Like, just kind of keep your eye on what's
Hmm.
happening. There may be some
Yeah.
opportunity too. Like, this could,
Yeah.
if Instagram is forced to spin out, it could benefit people like us, people who run small businesses, people who run online businesses, because it could reduce the cost of ads, or it could raise them. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Like,
We don't know. Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
know.
So So I did a little AI magic and asked it to give me some scenarios for the average online business owner in wellness. Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So if Meta wins this trial, meaning they get to keep Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp under their one umbrella, nothing will really change. You'll still have one place to run the ads, one, a Facebook ads manager, and so on. If Meta loses, then they're going to have to break up their company into, to sell off Instagram and WhatsApp. And so the one good thing is that you do have this one dashboard and you could target across all these multi-platforms. You're going to lose that. So instead of having one ad
Mhm.
dashboard, you might have to manage an ad dashboard for Facebook and one for Instagram,
Yeah.
right? So we don't know what that would look like. You're targeting your ability to get right to the people who need your offer, that could become weaker. Meta has so much information, which, is a criticism of theirs, but it
Yeah.
pulls data in from all of their things so that as an advertiser, you can really take that. That can be a huge advantage. So if they split up, that is going to be diluted. And again, as you just said, you might pay more to get in front of the same people because there's multi companies involved here. So a lot of less efficiency could result in higher costs for advertising.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So it's interesting, and I never really thought how we've just done Facebook ads recently, and it's it is nice to go to one place and have it all, right? But anyway, so we might see that change. So that is some of the impacts that could happen if Meta loses. But Jenny, you were saying this is in a lower court. So even whatever this Judge Boasberg decides, that's not done deal.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably, this will go up through the Court of Appeals and then possibly to the Supreme Court. But I don't know with the FTC involved, if there are any special rules. This was not my area of law, so that'll be interesting to
Or
see.
Trump will just
Yeah,
there'll
or
be a deal with Trump.
well, there's controversy around whether Trump can kind of bail Meta out. There's supposed to be this very clear
Hmm.
separation of powers
Hmm.
where the president can't kind of undermine a
Yeah.
judicial decision. And so that's also going to come up here depending on which way this thing goes. So I mean, who knows? But I do think that it will be something that rocks the tech industry if
Yeah.
Meta gets
Yeah.
broken up.
Oh,
And
huge.
and we'll talk about that in
Huge.
our next story too. Because this is historically how these companies again have grown. This is what drives their playbook and
Yeah.
their behavior for what kind of business they're, growing into. And so if we see Meta get slashed and then we see Google, which we'll talk about now in a minute, get broken up or
Yeah.
get penalized heavily
Yeah.
for its acquisition strategy, then we're going to start to see a different
Yeah.
playbook in tech.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be really interesting to follow. Okay, so let's move on to our next story, which is Google and another antitrust situation.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. So just to set the stage a little bit, Google acquired, I mean just like Meta,
Mhm.
Google has made a practice of acquiring its competitors or companies that it thought could, by acquiring them, it could add to, their bottom line and their benefits over time. And back in 2008, they bought an advertising software company called DoubleClick for $3.1 billion. And that is, a big part of what became Google AdWords or Google Ads technology. And so there were challenges about a decade ago, antitrust challenges to Google kind of having both the infrastructure where you manage your ads and then also the marketplace where you purchase. You purchase ads and you bid on ads and you pay for your ads. So anyway, there was an antitrust situation that was brought up about a decade ago, and then the federal government declined to take it anywhere. But now it's coming up again, and as of today, recording this morning, Google lost in court. So there's a question now about what happens to Google's advertising platform. We don't know what this means yet. This decision just came down a few hours ago, but it does mean that there's a strong chance that now the entire way that Google Ads work is going to change moving forward, which will obviously affect, many, many companies that are doing business online and offline.
Yeah. Yeah, it also says that Google has announced plans to appeal,
Yeah.
saying that it is a competitive market and so on. But yeah, maybe we can jump to what happens if you do run ads and how that might change. So I think it's still really uncertain, right? But if
Mhm.
again, if they have to divest, if they have to get rid of these
Mhm.
tools, or sell off some of their companies that they've purchased, like the one you mentioned, there may be lower ad costs and more control over where your ads appear. Especially if Google is forced to divest some of
Mhm.
its ad businesses, and
Mhm.
then again, there might be more ad platforms for you to choose from,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
more competition usually ends up with lower pricing.
Mhm.
The other thing I've heard people talk about this before is transparency. Like right now, nobody knows how much of your ad revenue actually goes to Google versus the publisher.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that would be kind of interesting too. So
Yeah.
um, if you do, and the other side of this is like if you sell ad space, like old school blog, down the side, you've got the ads running. Um, they're saying that some of these tools may have restricted how much you could earn from selling that ad space. So with these changes, if they have to divest, you would have the opportunity to work with more ad exchanges, which
Mhm.
could increase your revenue.
Yeah,
So,
and one of the biggest complaints over the last like 10 or 15 years has been the decline in revenue on blogs and
right. Yeah.
websites from ad revenue, presumably because of Google's behavior. So
Mhm.
that it used to be you could make a living or have a nice business or a nice side hustle with a blog with
Right.
sidebar ads running. And then that really shifted in the, I don't know, pre 2015 really. But like prior to that, that was a way
Yeah.
people made money.
Yeah.
And so like this really does affect the way we interact with each other, the way we do business with each other, how much it costs to run and sustain a small business or a large business. So
Hmm.
these are really important decisions. Like many of us, whether we're running ads on these platforms or not, will see the ripple effects of these changes in our lives. Like just the way
Absolutely.
we interact with the
Yeah.
products we buy, everything will start to shift if if these changes go through.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
So
So we'll keep you updated. I think
yeah,
as these decisions come down, or as these companies make decisions, we'll keep all of you updated.
yeah.
Okay, let's go to something a little less heavy in legal.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was very light legal, but yes. So
Well,
let's
to me,
talk
it's
about
legal. It's like a lot of
let's talk about like some economic like good news. We are operating in a very uncertain economy right now. A lot of us who have retirement accounts, 401k accounts, and whatever you call them in Canada, Sandy, I'm sure it's the same. Like
RES or
every
RRSPs.
everything is like very tumultuous. We've had some pretty big hits, most of us have, who are in the market, and then some bounce backs too, but it's just a ton of uncertainty. And so the economy with tariffs, with everything, is like a little bit scary and uncertain. And there's rumors, that we're entering a bear market and that inflation is like really high and that we're entering a recession. And so there's a fear, I think, for all of us as business owners, like,
Mhm.
how is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect consumer spending? And how are people going to change their buying and spending behaviors relative to my business? And we have some good news.
Yes, we do. It's so good.
Yeah. So essentially, it looks like wellness spending is up for 2025 and it's trending up. And so that is one of, I think all know that we operate in an industry that is pretty protected. Unless things are,
Mhm.
we're seeing some incredibly devastating news. There's a segment of the population that generally prioritizes their health. And so that doesn't change in a recession. This is not like the first spending that people give up. This is not, it is discretionary, but it's often not discretionary spending that people want to let go of. It's often like the last discretionary spending that people want to let go of. So we have some interesting little facts. There's a great report that we read about kind of spending increases in wellness in 2025 and trends. And there's some like specific indicators here that are really hopeful. So for example, book sales around menopause, mental health, and chronic illness are up 2 to 3 times year over year, which is
Mhm.
huge and significant. So if you are someone who offers programming, courses, memberships, classes in any of those spaces. If you serve people with respect to mental health or, menopause, women over 40, whatever, there's a real opportunity there for growth for you. And people are, in times of economic uncertainty, the reports show that people prioritize self-care. So like your coaching, your teaching, the work that you're doing in the world is actually something that people are prioritizing as they're experiencing this economic uncertainty. There's a lot more people are prioritizing like better
Yeah.
sleep. There, just so many areas where your work aligns with where people are wanting to spend their money.
Yeah, mental health, emotional health, menopause, like all of these are huge trending topics. And I think that this is a great, like this story is a great moment for everyone out there selling something to do with wellness to
Yeah.
really start to shift the mindset about what you are doing online.
Yeah.
So if you are saying to yourself like, oh, I'm just selling a course or I'm running a class, I think it's not just that, right? You are making people feel better, live better, and connect better, but you're also offering a solution in one of the most powerful consumer movements of our time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think like people are buying things for a lifestyle. They're shifting their lifestyle, right? It's not just some little tiny little niche anymore. This is huge
Yeah.
trillion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is just such great information in this report.
Yeah, and it's $1.1 trillion in spending power in the US alone. I just want to point out some areas that we're seeing specifically having growth this year, and those are around nutrition, pain relief, protein. So if any of your content or your work touches those things, sleep, stress, and mood. And then the other big area of growth and importance is community. So people are craving community, especially women. So if you serve women, incorporating some sort of community element into what you do, check-ins, a group meetup in your membership, start to think about how to really highlight those things. You're probably already doing them, but how can you highlight them in your marketing so it's very obvious to potential students that you do this kind of work and that you're a great fit for the needs that they have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like I don't know, this really rings true for me personally, and you and I have had multiple conversations about health and supplements and so on recently, and this is not the episode to discuss that, but like I have just spent a crap load of money on some supplements and I don't care. Like it just didn't matter. Yeah, I just, my
Yeah.
RSPs, my investments are down, but I still went and bought the supplement. So I think like really take this to heart. If you are doubting what you're doing, people want it, economy's bad, as Jenny was just explaining, people are really, really, we have the data to show that people are buying wellness right now, right? And they're
Yeah,
building
and
lives
more than
around it.
last year. And more.
More
Like
than
it's
last year. It's up.
more.
Yeah.
So I know that there has been this like sense of fear and unease since kind of the COVID boost that many wellness businesses or online businesses, really online businesses experienced during COVID. And I think that because there was such fast growth, we've talked about this before, that then there was like this period of a little bit of leveling out or retraction.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what we're trying to say is like, it wasn't like COVID happened and it was this weird blip and now it's over. Things have kind of leveled out and they are on the
Yeah.
upswing again. And so if you are struggling to kind of meet your revenue goals or you're struggling, I want you to think about what you could be doing differently in your marketing to make it very clear how you benefit people in these ways with respect to these areas of growth and wellness. So
Right.
it may just be that you're talking about your offer in too vague of a way. It may just be that you're not putting yourself out there to get in front of enough eyeballs. Like, it's not that the market is bad and that's why you're not at your revenue goal. I just want to like continue to hammer that home that based on the data, we're looking at the data. Based on that, there is not an excuse really for why things should not be going well. So like it's just a time to kind of look internally at your business and how you show your business to the world
Yeah.
so that you can start to meet those goals.
Sell it, sell it. I think
Yeah.
it all comes down to making something really remarkable and having the language to market and sell it and connect with that audience who is clearly searching for
Yep.
solutions to their wellness, their health, their lives.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. That's it. That's our variety show.
We'll see you next time. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right. Bye.